When I set up my bullet journal, I have this thing in my head where I rank each of my themes out of 10. And for the past 3 themes that I've done so far in 2023, I have to say most of them are like 7, 8s, and then February was like a 4. So I definitely have been really excited to just do a classic spring theme for April, and I have been planning these spreads for a couple weeks now, so super happy to be finally setting up my April bullet journal plan with me with you guys, and let's just jump right into it. I'm starting with this cover page, and I'm going to be drawing these 2 just springy pictures with a tulip in the back. I'll get more into the details later, but basically whenever I was planning out my theme, I wanted to focus number 1 on the color yellow, because I feel like yellow is a theme that I never use in my bullet journal. And for the past couple themes, I've definitely been trying a lot of new things. Like, if there's anything I've been proud of myself for doing in my bullet journal in 2023, it's experimenting. But I realized that I like to fall back on my classic colors of like pinks and greens a lot, and I never really use any oranges or yellows as like a main theme color. So I decided what better month to do that than April, which literally just seems like a yellow month in my head, you know, like ducks and flowers and like spring things. It all goes together. I definitely wanted to pull out yellow for this color palette, so whenever I was drafting this theme, I went on to, you know, my best friend Pinterest and looked up yellow aesthetic and trying to find pictures that were just kind of in that vibe, you know. I didn't want to do anything super stereotypical, I guess, like ducklings for April or like bunnies, you know, because of Easter. So I decided to just take little pictures that I saw on Pinterest and draw them individually. So on the right, you can see that I have the front bumper of a car in the picture on the top left, and then in the bottom right, I have a picture of a rotary telephone with some pearls draped around it. And I'm going to be covering these a little later with some yellowy tones along with some beige tones, because I feel like brown and yellow is like a color palette that I don't really use very often, but it does go well together. And if you know me, I love warm colors, so I had to bring back some more warmth with the brown into my color palette. So that was a very long-winded rant about why I decided to use yellow, but also, as you're going to see when I start coloring things in, I'm bringing in a little bit of gray. So, okay, in my head, brown, yellow, and gray like clashes so hard, and I definitely had this debate in my mind too whenever I was coloring everything in, but I'll put a couple inspiration pictures that I found on Pinterest here on the screen. You can see it's kind of a mix of like warm grays, browns, and yellows and whites, and it all looks really elegant and clean in Pinterest. So I felt like even though it looks a little weird like putting these colors together, I just might as well experiment, try them out, see how they work. And I mean, like, it's just a bullet journal month. If it doesn't really work, I don't have to use it for the weekly spreads. But I am now, looking back at it later, really glad that I pushed myself into this kind of unusual color palette that I'm sure many of you guys probably would not be very familiar with, I guess. Not many people use gray and brown together, but I felt like it just kind of worked with this theme to give it a muted spring vibe. And yeah, as I finish up the spread, so kind of see how I integrate these colors together, and I really like how it turned out. Another motif in this bullet journal setup that I decided to add in randomly, like literally as I was planning out this theme, it just kind of popped in my head, was checkers. So the yellow checkers behind this theme just kind of adds more texture and depth. It's a good way to kind of integrate yellow into the page without having just like a swash of color in the background. But also the checker kind of looks like a picnic blanket, which, okay, I think picnic blankets are actually gingham, but I decided to do checkers instead because they were just simpler to color in each of the little dot grid boxes. And also, as I was filling out this spread and, you know, watching little YouTube videos, I realized that my spreads look kind of similar to both Leela Journal's March setup, where she used tulips, and Plant-Based Bride's setup, where she used flowers and gingham. So definitely glad I used checkers instead to kind of put my theme different from theirs, because we all kind of had the same ideas as far as what we wanted to set up for April, and I feel like the checkers distinguished mine a little bit differently. But overall, it definitely took a lot of work for me to be happy with this cover page. The calendar page I preferred a lot more because it's just like super simple, not a lot of drawings in it, but I was worried that the pictures on the cover page just didn't really go together and they kind of clashed, so it took definitely some time for me to just kind of get used to it and really accept the brown and gray color palette. One thing I for sure don't like about this page is that one black tire on that car. I really could not figure out what to do with it because I wanted to make it a much lighter color since all the other colors in this page are quite pastel, but it just didn't look like a tire unless it was black. But then now I did color it in black and it looks way too stark against the rest of the page, so maybe I should have cropped it out so the tire wasn't visible in the picture. But I mean, it's not the end of the world, it just does draw your attention kind of in a weird way, but I mean, you live and you learn, and I guess I know for next time. Talking more about structure for this page, I put the calendar on the left side because this is one of my favorite things about my December 2022 bullet journal setup that I did, so I wanted to kind of bring that back. And last month I did have a humongous calendar for March because I did have a lot of things going on, so I actually used a 2-spread calendar, but for April it's going to be quite a more chill month for me personally. Color guard season just finished this week, which I'm so sad about, but I'm just trying not to think about it too hard or I'm gonna actually have a mental breakdown. And testing season is in the beginning of May. So April is basically just studying and chilling, so that's why I don't need a huge calendar. Another thing that I brought back this month that I haven't used in a long time are those alphabet stamps that I'm super excited to kind of implement. I get sent a lot of stationery and I also buy a lot of stationery, so I just have a lot of random things like alphabet stamps and quill pens and wax stamps and random washi tapes that I like really never use. And I realized that literally I have a bullet journal, that's what they're intended to use for, but because they're like kind of special stationery, you know, I just don't pull them out very often. So I figured, you know, I'm just experimenting with a lot of different things this month, and vintage stickers kind of go, like with the checkers and everything, it just kind of goes together. So I pulled them out for a couple headers that you'll see in the second page that I'm now working on, and I also did that for the 2023 on the cover page. So let's talk about this next spread, which is going to be my April overview page. Okay, first I will say this voiceover is kind of all over the place because I'm literally just filming in my bed, curled up under a blanket because it's freezing cold in here, and reading off of a very, very vague script. So hopefully you guys are not too bored of the ranting. But basically on this page, I decided to put everything into one big spread. This is not unusual for my channel. I do not like making huge spreads for things that really don't need to take up that much space because, for example, I have a habit tracker on the right that I will ink in a second, and I literally only track 4 habits this month, so I don't need an entire page dedicated for that, so I just decided to squish it all in with everything else. Basically, on the left page, I'm going to have space for my goals and then an expenses tracker on the bottom, and then on the right side, I have vertically a gratitude log and then the 4 habits that I'm going to track this month. A problem for me with bullet journaling, now that I've been doing it for going on 4 years, is I kind of have found systems that work for me. If you didn't see my last video, which is about bullet journaling spreads that I never use anymore, I would definitely check it out down below, but I talked about spreads that I don't really use very often, mostly because I don't have time, but that really did make me realize the spreads that I do use very often and the ones that I probably put in every single bullet journal setup because they are really productive for me. They don't take up too much time or energy, but they just help me, you know, manage my energy better, manage my life better, organize everything, you know. Because I use these same spreads basically in every setup, I have really kind of gotten bored of the same layouts, and it's such a struggle for me to kind of come up with new layout ideas, especially since I have a YouTube channel and my job is to kind of show you guys inspiration. But in my mind, I'm like, I don't really have any new ideas. Like an expense tracker always has to be horizontal, a gratitude log always has to be vertical, and the habit tracker boxes are like a certain amount of boxes because it's a little calendar shape, so it's kind of hard to like play with new layouts, you know. It definitely took a little bit of maneuvering. Whenever I was first sketching out these spreads, I was actually going to do a Dutch door setup, but then I realized I didn't really have enough like things going on this page to fit it into 2 pages, because as you can see, I can fit it into one big spread. So why would I need a Dutch door when I don't have any extra like content to put on those extra pages, you know what I mean? It took some messing around, but I do actually really like this layout that I finally came up with. I combined a more horizontal setup on the left with a very vertical and column-like setup on the right, and I didn't really feel like adding headers for everything simply because that would kind of mess up the balance of the spread. So I just made one big April overview header to kind of symbolize everything. And then of course the expense tracker, since it's in its separate box, has its own little header stemmed out with the alphabet stamps. Overall, I think it's just a really cute spread that is going to be really helpful to use and just a productive spread to use in the next couple weeks. So let's talk more specifically about the drawings in each of these pages now that I'm moving on to the weekly spread in this video. So the motif drawings that are just going to be on every page are tulips, butterflies, and clouds. And now that I'm saying it out loud, it's actually a very generic kind of theme. And I know I said at the beginning of the video that I didn't really want to be boring and ordinary like every other person who does flowers for spring, but like, I don't know, I guess I am going to be boring and generic. I'm eating my words here, but tulips are a flower I never really enjoyed drawing because whenever I draw flowers, I always like to, you know, extend the petals outwards, and obviously tulips are very close-knit and all like up into one like bud of a flower, I suppose. I mean, I'm not going to learn up the flower technical terms. I'm sorry if I'm messing up something biologically there, but I just never really liked the way that tulips looked. But recently I've been seeing a lot more pictures of tulips and just kind of like appreciating the flower for what it is, I guess. And so yeah, I decided to put it into my April theme and just try drawing them. I mean, if being honest, they are not really very good drawings. I tried to mess around with different leaf shapes and also practice the shape of a tulip, but I felt like all the flowers were not tall enough, and also the petals still kind of went out too far, even though I really tried to make them come close together. So I'll definitely try to improve my tulip drawing throughout the rest of the month. And then the clouds and the butterflies are just really standard, like there's nothing really special about them. However, one thing that does make this theme stand out, because like I said, I did want to make it a little bit unique, is the individual pictures that I have kind of floating in the background. It's almost like a Pinterest board. It became like a scrap board or like a vision board, you know, like I pinned up pictures of my vision board with actual tulips and butterflies kind of thing. So sometimes I have pictures like in boxes, like the coffee cups on the left or the Chanel bag on the right, but other times I have things like outside of the boxes, like the flowers and the butterflies. So I feel like this kind of adds some dimension and texture to the page because it's something that I don't usually do. And once again, say it with me, I am experimenting this month. So I will say all of this experimenting did come from a lot of like planning and idea dumping. Sometimes whenever I am planning out a theme, I make a just planning page in my bullet journal. I'll put a picture here on the screen of basically what mine looked like for April. But I start with just dumping random colors and markers of like ideas that's from my head, because usually my bullet journal themes come from a specific color palette that I want to use. And so I just dump all those colors on the page, see which ones work together from the specific markers I have, and I'll just start sketching in general, like drawing ideas along with the ones that I actually put into my actual spreads. So it's definitely a process, I think, not really a scripted one, but definitely a time-consuming one for me to plan out each of my individual bullet journal themes. So if you want to see a video in the future about more specifically how I come up with ideas and like how I plan everything and lay out my spreads, definitely tell me in the comments below. I made a video similar to that last March, I believe, and it did pretty well. So let me know if you guys want a part 2, because I think I have some updated tips in the past year that I would love to share with you guys. I did want to talk for a second about inspiration for bullet journaling, because I was thinking about it. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, my past 3 bullet journal themes in 2023 have been very, you know, experimental, trying different things, but also resulted in a couple themes that I really didn't like very much. Like January, I genuinely liked, and March I mostly liked, but some things I didn't, and February was kind of a flop. So I was thinking about that and how much whenever I first started bullet journaling, used to put so much emphasis and weight behind new bullet journal themes. Like, for example, I remember June of the first year I was bullet journaling in 2020, it was my birthday month, right? So I was really, really excited to make my bullet journal theme because I had an idea of doing a Paris theme, and it was a destination place that I always wanted to visit. It was my birthday month. Super, super excited, and I literally sketched out everything and I paced myself. So this was before I had a YouTube channel, and I literally spent one spread a day. Like I would only allow myself to do one spread a day for me to set up my bullet journal setup, because I was so excited to do it, and I wanted to make sure that I could enjoy the moment, you know what I mean? We're totally running out of time, but all that to say, now it's like I do them in a couple hours in a bullet journaling video online, and the amount of weight I put behind each bullet journal theme is a lot less because I have so many more themes in my back pocket, and I know that the month's gonna go by super fast. So even if I make some mistakes, even if they're things that I don't like, it's okay, because I have another month in the future and I can always make tweaks. It's not as important. So it's definitely an interesting like thought process, I guess, that goes behind my bullet journal themes now, because there's definitely not as much weight into them, but I definitely still love creating spreads that I think are beautiful and that I enjoy using. So overall, I am genuinely happy with the spreads for April. I think I tried a lot of new things, brought back some old techniques that I used to use, and even used some color palettes that I think are a little original. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, got some good inspiration from it. Let me know in the comments below what your April bullet journal theme is, and as always, subscribe if you want to see some more bullet journaling content from yours truly. If you guys want to see my last video about bullet journaling spreads you should never use, or at least in my personal opinion, check out this video on the screen here, and I will catch you guys next week.